Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining our daily Shiur. I would like to thank Ryan and Mordechai Meltz. They are really doing a great job helping to provide you these videos. And you're also welcome to check them out on our YouTube channel, Chabad of Rechavia, and on our Facebook page. Today, we are going to be discussing an interesting topic, ladies first. And it has a connection to our parasha as well. But we are going to be mainly discussing the difference between the mission of men and women. This is a subject that is, from time to time, it comes up, and sometimes it's not today. In our days, it's not, the truth sometimes isn't that common. And it's not an easy topic, but nevertheless, I think it's very important, first of all, to discuss it in general, and second of all, to bring out the Hasidic approach and the Jewish approach to the difference in gender, the difference between men and women. And it's interesting because it connects directly to our parsha. Our parsha says that when Hashem gave the Torah to Am Yisrael, to the Jewish people, so the pasuk says, "Ko tomar lebeit Yaakov v'taged lebnei Yisrael." This is what you should say to the house of Yaakov, and this is what you should say to the sons of Yisrael. The pasuk seems to repeat itself. Yaakov and Yisrael are the same person. Yaakov Avinu, the third of our forefathers. So what does it mean when the pasuk, when the Torah tells us, tell these rules to Beis Yaakov and tell these rules also to Bnei Yisrael? So the Medrash tells us that you should begin with the ladies, with the women. First of all, you should tell the woman the principles and the foundations of the Torah and the mitzvot. Once you have told the woman the principles, you can go on and tell Bnei Yisrael, the men, tell them the details of the Torah. Because we know that the Torah is built out of 613 mitzvahs. These are general mitzvahs, and there are many, many rules and many details behind each and every mitzvah. So the Medrash tells us, in other words, ladies first. Tell the ladies the principles of the Torah in a pleasant way, and then tell the men all the details of those principles. So this is basically the key and the main difference that will explain quite a few things in the way that we believe in the way of the Torah. So, for example, there is a basic halakha, and this is something that's important to know, that in Judaism, the religion of the newborn goes according to the mother. It does not go according to the father, and there is no such a thing that I'm half Jewish because my father was Jewish. The way it works is that it goes according to the mother. And if the mother is Jewish, then the children are Jewish. If the mother is not Jewish, even the father could be Jewish and the grandfather could be Jewish, that does not help. The mother has to be Jewish. And the reason is because the mother is the one that truly teaches the children the foundations and the principles of Judaism. And that's why, because she is deeply connected, and that started with Matan Torah. Mainly that is because of the nature of women, that they are more emotional. So therefore they have a bit of an emotional connection with Hashem, which is a deep connection to Hashem. And we'll soon talk about that deep connection. But that is why the best way to teach the children how to behave and how to follow the Torah and the mitzvot is through the mother. That is why it's so important that the Yiddish house, the Jewish house, is founded on mainly the mother setting the tone and teaching Yiddishkeit to her children. The truth is that we have evidence to it. First of all, I would like to begin with the evidence that we see in the Torah itself. And the Torah talks about certain things that happened to the Jewish people during the history. So, for example, when Am Yisrael spent time in Egypt, the ones that prepared for leaving Egypt weren't the men. Bizchut nashim tzidkaniyot nigalu avotenu mimitzrayim. In the zchus of righteous women, we were actually redeemed from Egypt. And this is amazing. By the way, the Medrash tells us that the women prepared drums and all kinds of instruments, musical instruments, to sing to Hashem and to praise Hashem once they would, in order for them to praise Hashem when they leave Egypt, which means they were already prepared to leave exile even before Moshe Rabbeinu actually appeared and tell them, we are leaving. So once again, this shows us once again the importance of the mother in the Jewish lifestyle. Here is another story. Right after Am Yisrael leave Egypt, they receive the Torah. That is our parsha. And unfortunately, as we're going to be learning in future parashiyos, what happens is that Am Yisrael actually, they do a big mistake. They sin, they build this golden calf, and they start bowing down to it as if it is a god. Now, how did that happen? Where did they have the gold in order to create this golden calf? So Bnei Yisrael went around and said, well, guys, we are building a new god. We are making a new god. Moshe Rabbeinu disappeared. He's not around anymore. He told us he'll be down here after 40 days. We don't see him here. Please give us your gold. So a lot of people gave out their gold. There are two parts of the Jewish nation that weren't prepared. The women. They did not give up their jewelry, their gold and their silver for that. The Levim also didn't take part. But besides the Levim, let's talk about the women. The husbands came and said, well, we're building this golden calf. Please take part in it. Give us some of your jewelry. And they were not prepared. Again, because the principles of Judaism are deeply in the woman's heart. And that's why she is the one that is truly able to continue the Jewish nation, to teach the Jewish youth how to truly connect to Hashem and to observe Torah and mitzvot. So these are two evidence that we see in the Torah itself that talks about the power that the Jewish women have. And there are all studies that have been done about the difference between men and women. We don't have to really go deep into it, but if we're speaking generally, women connect more to people, to think, not to things, but not to objects. Men connect more to things, to objects, and women connect not to things, but something that has connection more to the emotional part. And that's why in places like the Scandinavian countries, they are very advanced in the free choice of choosing jobs and choosing professions, etc., etc. There's a big difference between what men choose and what women choose. Men choose to deal with things, engineering, etc., etc. Women choose to deal with people, such as doctors and nurses, etc., etc. And that's a study that has been done in the Scandinavian countries, who are truly advanced countries in those terms. So these are all the evidence that bring us to the same conclusion, that when Hashem gave us the Torah, which means you should teach, the women of Am Yisrael the principles, the foundations. And don't worry, they will make sure to teach that to others, to keep on the Jewish lives and to make sure that the next generation will learn those principles. When it comes to the details, Taged li Bnei Yisrael, that you should tell Bnei Yisrael, the men. So this is basically the difference between the two things that the Torah tells us. And just an interesting question that is occasionally asked, and this is the question: why aren't women obligated in certain mitzvot? Right? We know that there's a difference between mitzvot that constantly we are obligated to do, which means that we are obligated 24/7 to do those mitzvot. And then there's no difference between a man and a woman. They are both obligated. Then there are mitzvot that there is a difference between men and women. Only men are obligated. So why is it that it seems that women are left out? They aren't obligated to to put on tefillin, for example, to wear tzitzit. Many other mitzvot that only men are obligated to do, but women aren't. And what is the true answer to this question? Because this is a question that that maybe it could bother sometimes people, and it's normal that it bothers people because we want to know the truth. Why is it that there's a difference between men and women? So first of all, it's important to know that there's a difference in the mission of not only men and women, but in men, there's difference between each and every person's job, each and every person's mission in the world. That's where it starts from. So, but besides that, let's talk about this interesting question. And there's an amazing answer, very inspiring, of the Rebbe. The Rebbe tells us the follows: what is the purpose of a mitzvah? Why do we do a mitzvah? Why do we put on tefillin in the morning? Why do we wear tzitzis during the day? What is the idea behind these mitzvahs? These are all tools to connect to Hashem. We are human beings, and we are separated from Hashem. We have our physical bodies that do not reflect Hashem, do not connect to Hashem in a direct way. So in order to connect to Hashem, what we need to do is we need to hold on to something. We need to basically do a mitzvah in order to connect to Him. That is the idea behind the mitzvahs. That is truly why we are doing the mitzvahs, right? Because the mitzvahs aren't just randomly certain things to do. And there's an interesting story about one student that came into the Rebbe, and he asked the Rebbe the question, the follows. He asked the Rebbe, well, why does Hashem care whether I eat meat after milk? Does it matter to Him if I use the same spoon to eat my whatever it is, to drink my coffee with, and to eat a hamburger with? Well, what does it matter? To have the hamburger with some cheese on the top, does it matter to Him? What is the whole point behind it? The Rebbe told him, no, it does not matter to Him. It matters to you. The mitzvot are here for you, not for Him. Which means that when we do a mitzvah, we are basically deeply connecting to Hashem. We are connecting to Hashem in the only way that we could actually connect to infinity. The only way that we can connect to Hashem, who is unlimited. There isn't any other way. He gave us the way. He told us, well, you want to give me nachas? You want to connect to me? No problem. This is the way to connect to me, because I decided I'm unlimited, I'm undefined, and that's why only the terms that I allow you to connect to me, that is the entrance, right? So it's like entering a building. You have to know the password to the building. You have to have a key. Hashem gives us the key. He gave us 613 keys to enter His house. That is the idea of the mitzvahs. So let's go back to the obligation and the difference between men and women. Men need a certain way to connect to Hashem because naturally we aren't connected to Hashem. But women are naturally connected to Hashem. They have a deep connection to Him, and they don't need all these tools and all these keys in order to connect to Him. They are more pure in a certain way. That is why they aren't obligated to do all these mitzvot. They don't need the mitzvah, because what is the purpose of the mitzvah? What is the idea behind the mitzvah? The idea is a way to connect to Hashem. But if you are already connected and you don't need the details because it's deep inside you, then you don't need all these mitzvot. There is no specific reason to actually obligate you to do this mitzvah. You're already connected. And that is the true power of women. We can see it throughout the Jewish history. We can see that there are quite a few heroes. We just read our Haftarah. The last Haftarah that we read, our Parshas Beshalach, is about Yael, who killed Sisera. She helped Barak to kill Sisera, who was a terrible enemy to the Jewish people in those days. He was a king, and that's a story that we just read about now. But there's a story about one of the most amazing women, Naomi and Ruth, right? Ruth HaMoaviyah. She actually converted to Judaism. And she converted to Judaism, and she showed what true loyalty is. Because she did not need to follow Naomi back to Israel, right? There's a whole story about this family that left Israel and went to a place called Moab, which today is probably in the area of Jordan. And the story goes that there was a famine in Israel and there was nothing to eat. So this rich family decided to immigrate to Moab, which is Jordan today. And Hashem didn't like that, because Hashem doesn't like people leaving His holy country just because it's a bit hard and you can't live in the most comfortable way and you can't use your money for luxury, because there is no luxury. Everyone eats the same thing. So Hashem punished this family, and both sons who married girls from that nation, both of them died. Naomi, who was the mother of those sons, decided to return back to Israel. She understood the hint. She understood that Hashem doesn't like it that they left Israel. After her husband died and the two sons died, she decided that enough is enough, and she is going to go back to arent Israel. She goes back to arent Israel, and her two daughter-in-laws are following her. She comes to the border and she tells them, listen, in Israel, there's a famine. You don't need to come. Don't come. Stay with your people. One of the daughters says, well, okay, I am going to stay with my people. The daughter-in-laws, of course, I'm going to stay with my people. But Ruth HaMoaviyah decided that she is going to follow Naomi. She was so deeply and naturally connected to Hashem. She did not need any mitzvah to increase the connection. The connection was already there. She was not obligated to follow Naomi, but she decided to follow Naomi even without any obligations. Why? Because she is deeply connected to Hashem and to Judaism. That is the true power of the women of Am Yisrael. This is the reason why women don't have as much mitzvot. This is the way that the Rebbe explains it, and it is very important to know this idea, because from time to time we get asked the question. If it doesn't bother us on a personal level, it might bother someone else, but it's important to know the idea behind the mitzvah. And this is one of the things that Hasidus teaches us, to understand what goes on behind. In the previous generations, the Jews did not need Hasidus, because things were more natural. There weren't as many questions as we have today. Not many things bother the generation. But unfortunately, as generations go on, we see that the generation goes down and people are less connected. people are less, that bothers them certain things. That's why Hasidus is a medicine, is a vaccine for our generation, even more than other generations. But it started 250 years ago, it started. And Hasidus came here to teach us the principles, and behind the principles, what is the idea? What does Hashem want behind a mitzvah? Why do we do a mitzvah? This gives us more of an understanding, gives us more of a bit more passion when we actually do the mitzvah. And it's so important to do mitzvot behidur and with simcha, because this is the continuation of mitzvot, of the Jewish legacy. So to summarize what we have basically learned today is we learned about the difference between men and women according to Judaism. We saw that the Pasuk tells us, first start telling the woman the principles of the mitzvot. Let Taged Libnei Israel, and then tell the details to the men. And that is because there's a big difference between the approach of the woman to the approach of the men. The women are deeply connected to Hashem. They weren't prepared to give gold, to contribute gold towards the golden calf. They weren't prepared at all. They prepared drums and musical instruments even while they were in Egypt, because they knew that Hashem promised to redeem them and Hashem will fulfill his promise, while the men did not do that. And this is why in Judaism we decide the religion of the newborn according to the mother and not according to the father, because the mother has the principles and she has them in such a deep way that she is able to connect the next generation to those principles. That is also why we find the difference between the mitzvahs, the obligations that men have and women have. Because the mitzvahs in general are here to connect us to Hashem. And that's why we do them. Men need ways to connect to Hashem. Women have it naturally, as we saw with Ruth HaMoaviyah. By the way, when we're talking about all kinds of holidays, celebrations like Purim, Hanukkah, where the women were part of the miracle and they caused the miracle, that case, so women are definitely part of the obligations that Chag has. They're definitely part of the celebration of that Chag. But when we are talking about ways to connect to Hashem, women don't need the mitzvot. They have it naturally. Thank you very much for taking part in this shiur, and we'll see you Bezrat Hashem next Sunday, hopefully, at 9:30. And tomorrow, Bezrat Hashem, Rabbi Goldberg will be giving the shiurim on Tehillim. Thank you once again, and have a great day.